Please, direct your eyes to the screen. The man you're witnessing here is none other than Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, praised by history as one of the greatest war gods to have ever walked the earth. In his 20-year career commanding armies across north and south, Napoleon carved out an endless stream of glorious victories, immortalized in the annals of time from the siege of Toulon in 1793 to the thunderous Battle of Wagram in 1809. But above all, there stands one battle that eclipses the rest, a radiant noonday sun of military brilliance. The crown jewel of strategic genius, a masterstroke of battlefield artistry. A battle that roared like a lion across Europe, declaring the unchallengeable dominance of the French Empire. Yes, the legendary Battle of Austerlitz, fought in 1805, a clash so iconic it came to be known as the Battle of the Three Emperors. To truly grasp the gravity of this event in European history, we must first rewind the clock to the previous year. On Sunday, December 2nd, 1804, inside the Grand Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, Napoleon was crowned Emperor of France, a coronation that marked the dawn of a 10-year era of unrelenting warfare, ravaging every corner of Europe and claiming the lives of millions. 8 months later, France, aligned with Spain, was locked in a fierce struggle against Britain. However, with the Royal Navy reigning supreme at sea, Napoleon quickly realized that an invasion across the English Channel was out of reach, across the water. The British were equally aware that they stood no chance of defeating Napoleon on land, and so they turned to strategy. The British government sought to unite Europe against France through diplomacy, persuasion and gold. Their goal, to form an anti-French coalition that could challenge Napoleon's swelling empire, because at that point, no single nation could match the might of the French and their allies. On March 17, 1805, Napoleon, then president of the Italian Republic, abolished its republic and turned it into a kingdom under French control. Just 2 months later, on May 26th, he crowned himself King of Italy inside Milan Cathedral. To the monarchies of Europe, this was the final straw, a blatant threat to the continental balance of power. Thus, Austria, Russia, Sweden, and Naples joined Britain in forming the Third Coalition, and together they devised an ambitious military campaign designed to crush Napoleon once and for all. According to their plan, Austrian and Russian forces would form the primary assault, marching westward across the Danube toward French territory. But Napoleon had no intention of sitting back. He launched a preemptive strike, rapidly moving the Grande Army from the northern coast of France toward the Danube. His goal: intercept and annihilate Austria's forward army before they could unite with their allies. The Austrians, entrenched in the rugged Bavarian highlands, were isolated and vulnerable. Through a clever deception maneuver, Napoleon encircled and overwhelmed them on October 19th, forcing their surrender despite desperate resistance and hope that the one-eyed Russian general, Kutuzov, might arrive in time. But at that moment, the Russian army was still over 250 kilometers away, a distance that seems small today. But in the early 19th century, with only horses and carts, it was a vast, punishing journey. No miracle came. The Austrians were forced to kneel. When the Russian army of 60,000 men finally reached the Austrian frontier, they were exhausted, hearing of their allies' defeat, and aware of their own depleted strength after a grueling 1,500-kilometer march. Kutuzov ordered a retreat, moving east along the Danube, but Napoleon was not about to let this prized prey escape. He pursued them relentlessly, eventually capturing the city of Vienna on November 12th. Still, Kutuzov and his forces managed through a mixture of cunning, endurance, and sheer luck to retreat north to Olmütz, where they joined forces with Tsar Alexander I of Russia and Emperor Francis I of Austria. Napoleon was furious. He knew well how dangerous Kutuzov was. Letting him escape could prove catastrophic in the future. Moreover, Napoleon's army was deep within enemy territory, far from home, fatigued, and with winter fast approaching. He needed one decisive blow a swift, crushing victory that would obliterate the coalition. To achieve this, Napoleon set a psychological trap. He withdrew from the town of Austerlitz and from the strategic Pratzen Heights, even sending a letter requesting peace. The ruse worked perfectly. Interpreting this as weakness, Tsar Alexander, overconfident and dismissive of General Kutuzov's cautious advice, decided to strike. He believed Napoleon was on the verge of collapse. After all, the proud French emperor would never sue for peace unless he was truly desperate. What Alexander didn't realize was that Napoleon was luring him in. Napoleon swiftly gathered his scattered corps and prepared for battle near the town of Austerlitz, carefully selecting the terrain and deploying his forces under the cover of night. The date was December 2nd, 1805, exactly 1 year to the day after Napoleon's coronation. The morning was cold and foggy, a veil of mystery before one of the most decisive battles in European history. The coalition held the upper hand, 85,000 troops, mostly Russian, supported by 320 cannons outnumbering the French by 10,000 men and twice as many artillery pieces. To make matters worse, Napoleon's Third Corps had not yet arrived. The coalition also controlled the Pratzen Heights, offering them a commanding view of the entire battlefield, an 11-square-kilometer arena of blood and glory. From the Allied perspective, Napoleon's formation seemed flawed. His left flank was suspiciously weak. His center and right looked overcommitted. To them, it appeared the French were unbalanced and vulnerable. They took the bait. At 7 o'clock a.m., the Austrian vanguard launched an assault on Telnitz, the far right of Napoleon's line. The outnumbered French defenders fought with desperate bravery, but were eventually pushed back. At that moment, Napoleon's Third Corps, after a lightning-fast 112 kilometers march into days, arrived just in time to stabilize the front. The trap was snapping shut. By 9 o'clock a.m., Napoleon observed that the entire left flank of the coalition had descended the heights to attack, leaving the center dangerously exposed. This was the moment. He unleashed the Fourth Corps, storming straight up the Pratzen Heights. Under cover of the thinning fog, the Russians, watching from above, were stunned. Out of the mist came tens of thousands of French soldiers, surging like a wave up the hill. For 2 hours, brutal close combat raged. The French, disciplined and unrelenting, finally captured the heights, splitting the Allied army in two. Meanwhile, in the north, fierce fighting kept the Russians at bay. When they tried to counterattack, French artillery and heavy cavalry crushed their advance. Only one hope remained: retake the Pratzen Heights. That mission fell to Grand Duke Konstantin Pavlovich, brother of the Tsar, commanding the Russian Imperial Guard, the final reserve. Sensing danger, Napoleon personally moved his command post to the heights and sent in his elite Guard cavalry. A vicious cavalry duel ensued. Though the Russians had initial superiority, French reinforcements turned the tide, inflicting devastating losses from his safe perch. Tsar Alexander watched in horror as his finest troops were decimated. On the northern front, the French, the Fifth Corps, launched a massive counterattack, forcing the coalition into retreat. Finally, Napoleon turned his gaze southward toward the crumbling left wing of the enemy, still bogged down at Sokolnitz. He struck the final blow for French divisions circled behind the coalition forces, cutting off their only escape, the frozen lake. Of S-80 Eschen. Napoleon ordered cannon fire onto the ice. The ice shattered. Hundreds of soldiers and dozens of cannons plunged into icy death. By 4 p.m., the thunder of artillery ceased. The Battle of Austerlitz was over. Napoleon had delivered a catastrophic blow that shattered the Third Coalition. The Russians retreated in disgrace. Emperor Francis of Austria was forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty. paying 40 million francs and ceding vast territories. The Battle of Austerlitz remains a shining monument to Napoleon's genius, a military masterpiece that showcased his speed, deception, timing, and ruthless precision. From that moment on, the shadow of war darkened Europe for the next 10 years and throughout that decade. The old continent trembled under the absolute might of the French Empire, led by the one they called the God of War. And so, as the sun set on that blood-soaked battlefield, the smoke cleared, the cannons fell silent, and Europe held its breath. What Napoleon achieved at Austerlitz was not merely a military triumph. It was the birth of legend, a testament to the terrifying beauty of strategy and the mind of a man who could bend empires to his will. He was outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched on paper, yet he emerged victorious. Because while others saw fog, he saw a curtain. While others saw weakness, he laid a trap. While others fought a battle, he conducted a symphony of war. Austerlitz was not just a victory. It was a message carved into the bones of Europe. That genius needs no permission. That true power is not taken at his orchestrated, and though Napoleon would one day fall, as all men do, this battle, this masterpiece remains untouched by time. So remember this: empires rise, empires fall, but brilliance is eternal. This was the Battle of Austerlitz, and this was the day a man became a myth. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel to receive more practical videos about Napoleon.